Welcome to Conscious Conversations, a place where East meets West, a place where conversations and ideas will challenge your minds, expand your consciousness, awaken your heart, and make you think more deeply about yourself and the world.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Conscious Conversations. I'm Anthony Profeta here with co-host Wes Gordon. How are you doing this week, Wes?
Good.
Good to be here with you.
Yes.
I'm excited about today's topic, and it should be an interesting one.
It's a strange one.
But to all of you out there, we have a very interesting topic that we want to discuss today. But let us preface by saying there's no real proof of this. This is just something that we're throwing out there because it came up in Wes's life, and then he brought this idea up to me. And at first I was like, oh, I don't know about all this, but I didn't say that to him.
I felt it.
But I went home and I began to really contemplate and meditate because we were sharing a little bit before the show. You said, something stuck with you.
Yeah.
And for some reason, it stuck with me too.
Yeah.
And I began to contemplate this idea. And as I began to meditate and contemplate on it, some things began to pop up that said, well, maybe. And so what we want for today's show, what we ask of you is just to come with an open mind, be here with an open mind, an open heart. Try not to just dismiss it so quickly, but really follow us on this journey. In the opening to Conscious Conversations, there's that intro which says, we're here to discuss these topics to make you think more deeply and to, talk about things in such a way that might help to look at things from a different perspective. And so today's topic is a little bit about looking at this world
Right.
through a different perspective. So since this came up in your life first, would you like to share what today's topic is?
Sure. This spiritual prison planet concept.
Prison planet.
Yeah. I had a friend on Facebook, and one of his posts, he was prior an atheist, and then he was stepping into different modalities of religion and spirituality. So he was shifting and growing,
right?
And he wasn't all hardcore atheist anymore. And he had to post something, and he said, "This is a prison planet."
Okay.
And when I seen that, I was just like, "What?" It was very no way. But just like you, I went on down the road with my life that week, and it's something about it just kept coming back to me.
Right.
I'm like, what is up with this? How could that be possible, and why would it be possible? Anyway, I just let it lay.
Right.
And then one morning when I got up and started meditating, it was like, woof. I got this little mini download of, this is how it could be. And I was like, whoa, this is crazy. And then, the next time I seen you, I shared the details with you going, what do you think? This is pretty out there.
I think I said interesting.
Yeah. Gave me that look like, outer space or what? Yeah. But I actually put a post out there and I said, what if it is? We live on a spiritual prison planet.
Right.
Not just a prison planet, but a spiritual one.
Right, I get it.
And I was like, well, how could that be?
Right.
And then all this stuff started coming in with, okay, we need to be saved. And then I said to myself, saved from what? And then I was like, well, if I'm on a prison planet and I need a savior, which I've been told I do,
right.
I need to be saved from something. And then the next thing that popped up was the wheel of reincarnation.
Okay.
So that you don't have to keep living and spinning that wheel and having a lifetime over and over,
right,
until you figure this divinity part out.
Right.
And that's where I got, I don't want to give it all the way right off the top, but that's when I started, asking more questions with it. Like, okay, if that's true, then what about this? Or
right.
What about that?
Yeah, to try and poke holes or find out if it could stand under its own weight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it was bizarre. It's still bizarre to me.
Right.
But it made a lot of sense on why the world is the way it is. The conditions of God doesn't seem to be around. It's not as much as we need. Things go bad. Bad
right.
people seem to get away with all kinds of stuff.
Right.
Good people suffer for no reason.
Yes.
Or they don't have it as good. And it's just, the bizarreness of this world.
Right.
It started making a little bit more sense in my head. Like, well, this is a kind of a prison of sorts. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you brought this idea or topic to me and said, "Hey, what do you think of this? This is what I heard. This is what I read." At first, I really do believe I said to you, "Well, that sounds interesting." But then I went home, and as I was leaving you, I'm like, "Oh, I don't know, prison. I don't feel like I'm in prison." I think many people would feel like, "Well, no, I don't feel that," or their first instinct would be, "Nah, come on, it's too far-fetched."
Right.
But then I also began to go home, think about it. For some reason, this idea of being in prison stuck with me. And prison in and of itself is a place where people are separated from humanity, where they're taken away and put in a separate place, and they're isolated from that. And then I began to say, well, wait a minute. That's sort of like being this idea of feeling separated from God.
Yes.
And I said, many people here don't directly experience this direct connection to the God energy, to the God source, to spirit. They feel a disconnect. And I said, well, okay, so that can sort of align, that we're separated from our true spiritual identity in this incarnation. But then I began to sort of say, well, is there anything in Scripture that could maybe just be a puzzle piece that might begin to fit into this idea of being a prison planet? And as I began to think and as I began to research, the prophet Isaiah, when he's talking about the fall of the light bearer, or what is often translated as Lucifer, and how he fell from heaven, well, it doesn't say that he's cast into hell. The very scripture is Isaiah 12. I forget the actual verse number, but it says there that, "Oh, how have you fallen, O Lucifer," or morning star, "son of the dawn, you have been cast down to the earth." Doesn't say cast down to hell, but it says cast down to earth.
Interesting.
And then if you go to Revelations 9, it says, "I saw a star fall from heaven to earth, and it was given the key to the abyss," or the eternal pit. Sometimes it's also translated on. But again, it fell from heaven to earth. The star. And the stars are often talked or referenced or metaphors for the fallen angels. And there's another reference in Revelations 12:4 where it's talking about the dragon. And it says that his tail swept a third of the stars and they fell from heaven to earth. And that means that it doesn't say hell, it doesn't say Gehenna, it doesn't say any of that. It says these fallen angels, that statement, if you're not familiar with the book of Revelations, and 1/3 of the stars fell, that's translated and often in esoteric teaching that when Lucifer fell, 1/3 of the angels fell with him. And so there's like all of these angels and spirits from heaven that also fell out of heaven, and where they landed was earth. So could this be a place where people are cast into, or like imprisoned because of something that happened in sort of like some sort of spiritual level of reality or consciousness or this and that? And then that started making me go even further.
Uh-oh.
And again, please know, just have an open moment. We're just trying to discuss these things and look at these spiritual references and topics with another view or from a different angle and try to see what it means. But it made me go even further than say, well, wait a minute. If this is the prison planet, if Lucifer was cast to earth, if him and 1/3 of the angels were cast into the earth, then could we be those 1/3 of the fallen angels?
Holy smokes. I didn't go that far. Whoa.
Who are now imprisoned here on this prison planet, trying to work our way back to union with God again in the heavenly realm. But I think that we need to take a break here, pause here. We'll allow you to contemplate that, think that one. I hope I didn't shatter anybody's world with that statement. And I know a lot of you might say, no, I'm not one of the fallen angels. But it is lining up in little puzzle pieces that say, well, who knows, maybe. But we'll continue this interesting topic of conversation. We hope you'll continue it with us because we do have some ways out. And we'll talk about them after the break, so stay tuned. Welcome back to Conscious Conversations. I'm Anthony Profeta here with Wes Gordon. We're having an interesting discussion. And again, please just we're just asking you to just think about this from maybe a different perspective, contemplate it. We're not saying any of this is absolutely true,
Right.
but it was just a topic that came up in one of our discussions, and we thought it would be an interesting one to share with all of you. And the idea was, is this Earth a prison planet?
Right.
Where we are here sort of locked in prison, separated from our spiritual reality. And we both were struck by this concept. I sort of began to meditate on it, look into what do the ancient texts say. And there were some verses that I could find that said that the Earth was sort of like a place of separation from God, because in Isaiah, it says when Lucifer, the morning star, fell, it doesn't say it fell into hell. It says it fell to the earth. And then in Revelations, when they're talking about the dragon, Revelations 12:4, the dragon is referenced as Satan. It says that he swung his tail, and then the third of the stars fell with the dragon. And it said the great dragon was hurled down to the earth, and he is called the devil, Satan, who leads the world astray. And he was hurled to earth, and his angels with him. So that began to really get me thinking, well, maybe this Earth is sort of like a prison planet. And wait a minute, does this mean that maybe we here in this incarnation are one of the 1/3 of these fallen angels who fell with them, trying to reawaken ourselves and work our way back to our heavenly state? So just a little bit of, some contemplation for all of us here.
Right.
But because another thing is, if you really look into it, it says that the angels fell because of a misuse of their free will. They began to live selfishly, follow their own will rather than the will of God. And so, or the laws of God. And so I found that interesting. And then you had referenced reincarnation.
Yeah.
Well, maybe this whole idea of being born in these bodies is trying for us, like when we're in life, it's like our year of parole. We're trying to work to get freed. But if we don't, if the parolee doesn't meet his parole, he's sent back to prison again. Yeah. And so that's why we have to keep coming back over and over and over again to try and work, because it's in this life, many traditions say that we work our salvation out through what we do in this life and hopefully break out of this wheel.
Right. Does the New Testament mention reincarnation?
Actually, yes, to be honest. There's a very interesting topic also, which we could probably devote a whole show to. Many people think like reincarnation is just an Eastern idea, an Eastern philosophy of being born and then continually reborn. So you go through birth, death, rebirth until you check out. You want to check out. You don't want to continue to be like the hamster in the wheel going over and over and over again. You're trying to regain your oneness with God or source or spirit or universe, whatever label you want to think of that.
And ascend.
Yes, trying to ascend and get out of the wheel and go back there. What's interesting is in early Christianity and early Judaism, there are some ideas and beliefs that reincarnation is believed by the people. Ironically, later on, it's sort of like wiped out. It was in the Second Council of Constantinople in 553. That the council got together and decided to confirm Constantine's idea that reincarnation was a heresy.
Really?
So it wasn't until 553 in the Second Council of Constantinople that reincarnation theology was wiped out of the Christian faith. But it can still be found in the New Testament. And what happened is once they wiped it out, their whole idea doesn't make sense. Because it says, well, we're born, and like we're created then, and then from that moment we go on into infinity. So like there's a starting point and an ending point. Or no ending point.
No ending point. Yeah.
But science and spiritual law confirms the opposite of that. They say there's no beginning and no end. Science says that we're energy, and energy can't be created, can't be destroyed. All it could do is transition from one state to another. And that means at our birth, our energy wasn't created. It was transitioning from somewhere. And when we die, our energy transitions. So to get to this idea of reincarnation, very often spoken about in Eastern traditions, but in Western traditions, modern Orthodox Judaism really don't subscribe to the idea of reincarnation. But the mystical Jews, the Hasidim and the Kabbalists, they do.
Really?
In fact, they embrace it wholeheartedly. In fact, it's referenced within their great mystical text, the Zohar. And please forgive me, I don't speak Hebrew, but I think the word is Gilgul, Gigul, and it means rolling. And what it means is that our soul rolls through life over and over again in bodies until it becomes one with God again. So where does the Bible say it? Is there any reference in Old and New Testament? Some say there is. They say that the prophet Micah 5:2, when it's speaking about the Messiah being born in Bethlehem, it says in that verse, "But you, O Bethlehem, out of you shall come forth one unto me, whose beginnings are from old." So that reference right there, many scholars say, is saying that it's a soul who has been here before and is coming back again as the Messiah to help bring people to deeper connection with God. Now, if you go further in that, in the New Testament, in the book of John, there's a point where John the Baptist was out in the desert, and the head Jews, the Pharisees and Sadducees, come to him, and they say to John, "Under what authority do you have? Who are you?" Mm-hmm. And they say, "Are you the Christ?" And he says, "No." They say, "Are you Elijah or one of the prophets?" So right then and there, they're asking him, are you a soul reincarnated? Are you a soul that has come back again? Straight up asking him if he is Elijah. They're questioning that. Wow. So the older Jews of antiquity believed in this idea. And then if you go further in Mark chapter 6, verse 14, when John has already been beheaded now, but Jesus' ministry becomes bigger and he goes out preaching more and more and more. Mm-hmm. There's a part that Herod becomes afraid because now Jesus has become famous and his teachings have become quite well known. And Herod says, "Oh my God, this is John coming back from the dead again. Otherwise he couldn't do such wonderful powers." And then the people say, "No, it's Elijah or one of the other prophets." And Herod outright says, "No, it is John who has come back again." So he's referring to a reincarnation of a soul or spirit. And if you go to Matthew 11, verse 4, there's this part where Jesus is interpreting the scriptures, and he says, he's referring to, I believe it's Isaiah, who says, "Before the coming of the Christ, I will send my messenger who will make their way straight." And Jesus outright says to the crowd, "For those who have ears to hear, I tell you that Elijah has come, and it is John the Baptist." So he is saying that John the Baptist was the reincarnation of Elijah. And then there is one other quote in scriptures that could point to reincarnation, in which Jesus and the disciples are walking, and they come across a blind man. And the disciples outright ask Jesus a question. They say, "Did this man or his parents sin in order for him to become blind?" Now, the question, what did this man do, or did this man sin in order to become blind? That means they had to believe that he existed prior to his birth and had to do something prior to his birth in order to become blind. So could that be a past life? Some people say that their belief system was this idea that the soul did come back over and over again. And it is found throughout the ancient Greeks. It's found in ancient Western thought for all time. Socrates, Plato, Pythagoras, they all believed in that. In fact, if you go back and read Plato's The Republic and Phaedo and all of these things, they talk about reincarnation. And Socrates saying in the Greek writings of Plato, "I am confident in the belief that there truly is this thing that is living over and over and over again. It springs from the dead and becomes reborn in another body." So he references that too in Greek thought. Wow. But so, yes, many do say that. And so is this reincarnation our way of salvation? Is it a way for us to regain ourselves, work out whatever debt we might have, and break out of this prison planet that we feel separated in?
Could be.
Could be.
I had no clue that there was that much background to this. Yeah, that's quite bizarre, to be honest with you. Yeah. I mean, when this came to me out of the meditation, I was quite shocked at the time. I actually posted it on Facebook, a little short thing of it. I printed it out because when things come to me and I sit down in front of the computer and type them out, the words just flow, and I won't remember exactly how I said it
Right.
after I get done, because there's a larger part happening there. But yeah, with this, possibility of this being a spiritual prison planet, my brain went into, okay, why is that? Why would that be? And it was many lifetimes to learn some lesson.
Right.
And then it was living bound by some spiritual laws and not ever rising to the level of living in the grace, power, and presence of Creator until you finally surrender to something much bigger and loving than your limited inner ego expression or self-expression. So I was like, okay, that kind of lines up.
And that goes in line with the whole idea that in the 1/3 of the angels that fell, they said fell from selfishness, a misuse of their free will.
Right.
So, and then they need to surrender back to God.
Well, and this thing is bizarre. Granted, I give it. This is bizarre.
Right.
For us to even talk about this is pretty bizarre. Like you said, we're just trying to stretch your imagination and possibilities, and expand your awareness and consciousness to what if, maybe.
Right.
And if it resonates with you, okay. But my brain instantly said, okay, if this memory I'm having is true, how do I escape?
Right.
It's like, this is, if this is
Important to know.
Yeah, if this is a possibility. And this is when, when spirit works through you, you're like, okay, this is so crazy. This got to be my ego in overdrive telling me some really bizarre stuff.
Right.
But when this ending part came, that's when I went, oh, no. Because it was like the answer came back to me in a still small voice. And it said, because I asked, how do I get out of this mess? And it said, you have to love your way out.
Wow. That's the key.
That's when it's like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, learning how to love again. Love God, love it through loving each other, through all of that. I believe that's a powerful and profound way or explanation of how to, get out and save ourselves and no longer be prisoners bound is through love. Love is freeing. There's that quote in New Scripture Testament in which it says, love covers a multitude of sins. So that means it gets rid of all of that. So to love our way out,
and it goes back,
makes total sense.
It goes back to the first 2 commandments too.
Yes, love God. Yep. And love your neighbor as yourself, and all of those.
So see how easy it is?
That's
love. All you got to do. The Beatles said that, right?
They did. But we thank you for going on this journey with us. We know it might have been a little bit of a, hard to wrap your head around, but just we wanted to give you some food for thought, and we thought it was a fun way and a discussion to sort of share with all of you. So we thank you so much for watching. We thank you for listening. If you enjoyed it, please leave your comments below and let us know what you think. We love you all, and have a blessed and beautiful day.